everyone, this video is on recognizing errors in positive reinforcement training. A lot of people think you can't go wrong when using treats and toys to train your dog because it's positive reinforcement, so it can't be bad. However, what can happen when you have something that a dog wants and then you keep it away from them and ask them to do more and more things and raise criteria incorrectly? What can happen is frustration and stress. The same with if we went to work and we're working and we have an expectation of when we're going to get something and then it doesn't happen. So like you're ready for your paycheck, you want to do something fun, and then the boss says, oh, wait, you have to do this. Oh, and also this. Oh, and also this. And the job that you got was 2 times harder than you thought it would be. So a lot of frustration can happen. So how can we recognize it in our dogs that they're feeling conflicted or frustrated with the training process, or that there's been so many training sessions where they felt this way that they have a conditioned emotional response when you start training of feeling not well, unhappy, stressed, panicked, over-aroused. So signs to look for that are good is that the dog's body language is relaxed. They can be highly aroused, not over-aroused, but you can be doing some fast, precise behavior if that's what you're interested in, but the dog isn't falling apart as they're doing it or in a state of conflict. So what I think of when in terms of a dog not doing well in a training session is when it looks like the dog is in conflict. What you should see is the dog enjoying the moments before the reinforcement. So they should be enjoying the behaviors that they're doing and not only focusing on, I have to do these to get the treat. For me, what that looks like when a dog is not doing well is that they start to show these signs of distress. Some dogs might get overexcited by food and treats, but you would need to work on that first before then working on training, because then you would get overexcitement in the whole picture. Here are some signs to look for that you might need to reassess the training plan and break the steps up smaller, or create a different training plan, or maybe even go back to basics with using treats and toys so that your dog isn't feeling frustrated by not getting them as soon as they think. So all dogs are different and all their behaviors are different depending on their personalities and genetics. But some very common ones in dogs are that their breathing changes. So film your training and listen back to it. Have the camera near your dog. When you're training your dog and your dog is panting, and then you ask them to do a behavior and then you hear and then when the behavior is over, then they're back to. If you notice a sudden frantic breathing, exaggerated breathing, sometimes they'll make a huffing noise as they're doing something. You might have the problem that there are behaviors that your dog makes that noise during, and you can go back and work on that behavior to get to the point where the dog isn't doing an over-exaggerated breathing pattern, perhaps whining or barking. So the other two are whining during training and barking and acting frantic. So if your dog is just standing normally in the living room, or maybe you're playing without training, and how does your dog look? You want your dog to look like that. You don't want your dog to look if you notice a change, how they look when you suddenly have something they're not allowed to have until you've asked for something, and suddenly now they're acting frantic, and maybe you've noticed their face changes. Does their face look like that any other time of the day, or is this only when you're withdrawing food or toys in order to train the dog? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're being deprived. My own dogs have multiple toys lying around, but they want to play with the one I have. So it could be a scenario like that, but they're feeling conflicted. So some differences that you might notice is that the dog's mouth might gape wider and show the back molars, or that they start to show more of their teeth, like they're showing their front teeth and their canines, which you usually don't see. So it really depends on the dog's conformation as to how their face will change. Some dogs start to get bags under their eyes, and the muscles in their face start to get stretched, so they have like stress lines under their eyes. Now, it's understandable if something like this happens in a new environment, or when something really exciting happens, or something unexpected and stressful, and then you can modify your training, get your dog out of the situation, or work towards those different situations. Dogs will act stressed at different times. But if your dog is doing this in training sessions every day, and you're only asking for a small amount of behavior, and you're hearing whining and barking and exaggerated breathing, where they haven't done any physical exercise, and they're slow breathing and then fast breathing, then it's really important, in my opinion, that you start working on teaching your dog to be calmer around food and toys, and reducing that level of frustration. It should be fun. It should be a two-sided relationship where the dog is enjoying the process in between getting the food or the treat as the reinforcer. So the behavior and the training should become secondary reinforcers. It shouldn't be this horrible task that they have to complete in order to get what they want. And it can sometimes turn into that. So we need to be mindful that the training is as enjoyable to the dog as it is for us. And seeing our dogs doing behaviors is reinforcing. So we need to not get carried away. And I think sometimes people start to not hear those noises or see those signs because they happen in every training session. So they think that the dog is acting happy or enthusiastic, when in truth the dog is stressed. And not a good stress. Another thing to keep in mind is just because a dog is whining, growling, or barking during training, that doesn't necessarily mean they're more stressed than a dog that isn't vocalizing at all. For example, I have a little Chihuahua, Epic, and I can see when she's very frustrated, but she's very silent in her frustration, and her behavior is just that she starts doing erratic movement and looking away from the task, away from me, and at other things in the room. So I know, I need to I need to make the criteria easier, go back a step, make it fun for her again. Where dogs that are noisy in their regular life, maybe they're a little terrier, like my terrier Tug, and they bark a lot and they growl when they play, that the growling and the barking is going to be more likely to pop up in the training session, and maybe they're not as stressed as the other dog that's very quiet in their frustration. I still think that you should work on it. Another thing is, if you don't like the sound of whining and growling and panting and frantic lip licking, which I would be like, ooh, stop right there. If you don't like the way it looks, and you don't want it to always be in the behaviors, if it's in your small training sessions, it's going to live with you for the rest of your life. It's going to get conditioned into the behaviors. It's going to be really hard to separate the whining, the barking, the growling, frantic behaviors from the behaviors that you're training while they're in this state, in my opinion. But really, just to be on the safe side, if your dog's whining, barking, growling, making huffing noises, over-exaggerated breathing, frantic licking, frantic eye blinking, chattering their mouth, drooling, I would really, really reassess what you're doing and go back a step. I have to do it all the time. Recently, I haven't been doing so much training, and when I went to do more heel work than Halo has done in a while, he started to look frantic, so we stopped. And then I went back a step and worked in smaller approximations, and then boom, he's enjoying it again. For some dogs, it's going to be a lifetime of going back a step every once in a while and working on just how they react to food and toys in a training session. And for other dogs, you might have to be building their motivation to want to play with food and toys. They might be the type of dog that if you ask for too much, they just lay down or they walk away. And I actually think that those dogs are better to learn from because they just say no rather than working through it, but getting frantic and and just falling apart as they're doing it. They just know, oh, I've had too much, I'm going to lay down or I'm going to walk away. And that really helps, because then the trainer really has to reassess their training plan and suit it to the dog.